But you never hear about them in the media. This media, don't get me started on these people. Okay, they're the biggest a-holes in existence. I mean, the way that they ignore the important stuff, and anybody that's really got that can put string two words together that makes sense out there, they don't, they don't interview these high-ranking politicians and public figures out there. No, we got to hear from people like Nancy Pelosi, John McCain. I mean, just the worst out there. And anybody that's cognizant and is paying attention understands what I'm saying. That's why they're the fake stream media. We want to know the truth. I mean, we're not a bunch of mushrooms. We're the public, and we want to know what the hell's going on in America. Okay, we want to know. Okay, about 9/11. We want to know all the truth. We want to know about this group of over 2,200. They call themselves the architects and engineers for 9/11 truth. We want to know what they have to say. Was this a scam? I mean, so all America, we're just being deluded. It's happening right before our eyes. This Overton window is being moved, and we're all just falling prey to it. We're all just falling into this trap. I mean, this is the kind of rhetoric conversation, discourse we need to have with each other. The communists, the most devout of you, those that don't accept money for it, you just believe in your cause, that you're the good guy, you're the egalitarian, you believe in equality. I get it, man. I do too. I believe in those things. And some people are trying to give the term equality a bad name, and I resent the implication, because what is the God of the Bible? Let's always ask, what's the God of the Bible say about that, okay? You're going to go on your own opinion? You believe that inequality is okay? It's un-American, I'm here to tell you. It's right in our Constitution. So let's start from that premise that it's illegal according to our Constitution. So beyond the Constitution, the only thing that supersedes that is God himself. So equality is right. Inequality is wrong. Let's make that perfectly clear. Okay, because by default, you become an elitist if you don't believe fully in equality. And this has nothing to do with private property. I'm not trying to take anybody's private property. I don't prescribe to the Robin Hood theory. Okay, I mean, in principle, it sounds all fine. Oh, yes, well, I mean, the rich have stole from us, so let's steal back from them. No, it's got to be done much more diplomatically, much more introspectively, circumspectively, thoughtfully. Okay, we need to be very tactful in a divine manner at changing things, but understand that you don't want to be an elitist. And if you believe in inequality, you by default are an elitist. And you can say, yeah, but I'm just a little bit elitist. Not okay. Okay, not okay. Okay, I don't care if I'm talking to rabid capitalists, or which would be, I guess, a crony capitalist, or rabid communists. Okay, you guys are not so different. Maybe Obama was right in that one speech. Okay, but I'm talking, look, I am cynical sometimes because of the way it appears. Okay, so if I doubt the motivations of a crony capitalist and I say, well, they're fear-driven themselves and they're just disregarding their conscience and saying, look, they're rationalizing their behavior and engagement in crony capitalism and ripping off others. It really is the Robin Hood thing in reverse. This is how you steal from the poor and keep them perpetually enslaved instead of making progress and setting them free with a higher standard of living, lower burden, lower taxes, lower cost of living. And I prescribe to Trump's tax plan, by the way, and I do believe this will be good. I believe it will increase the worth of your currency, okay, because it'll cause businesses to relent on this perpetual inflation theory, okay? If they see their cost of living going down, I believe a lot of it's going to translate that way. We have a lot of good people. There's still a lot of good of Americans out there, and a lot of them are business owners. And if they set an example, they can set a trend. That's all. Think what a large forest to set a fire with such a small spark. And this is what's going to happen. Trump knows what he's doing. Go for it, man. The whole bullying thing. Look, America is hands down the most powerful nation in the world. It's been that way for decades, my whole life. Okay, we could kick anybody's ass at the drop of a dime. But the Russians have never really been our enemy. They tried to make them that during the Cold War, a long thing. But, hey, look, it's just bull, because we know about this New World Order cabal and their intentions. They're Satanists, either the money printing class. They're all in cahoots. They're all Satanists, witting or not. A lot of them are openly, overtly, unabashedly Satanists. So let's get that straight. They're into child pedophilia and sacrifice and all this crap. I mean, these are some these are some sick puppies, okay? God help them. God help them, because it's not my job to condemn anybody, okay? It's my job to reach out to them, okay? And to be a good reflection, a good representation of God. It doesn't mean that I should tolerate this, okay? It means the opposite. I'm very intolerant of evil. But first, you've got to identify it. You've got to see where it is. You've got to be empowered. And you've got to accept the empowerment, because that's a lot of responsibility. But that's what wisdom and knowledge, accurate information gives you, is that vast empowerment. And what you do with that, you've got to say, well, then I've got to spread it too. Yes, you have an obligation then, once you've been given the truth and the knowledge, and you are empowered. You're out of Babylon. You're out of confusion. You're out of ignorance. You're out of stupidity. You get the big picture. Okay, so anybody can do that. I'm not here to condemn anybody. I'm not condemning the worst fascist communists out there. I'm not condemning the worst crony capitalists out there. I'm saying let's come together as a family of humanity, one race. This is what I believe with every fiber of my being is God's will for us, that we love one another the same way Jesus said. And we don't let Satan do this to us. We want as many people to be saved as possible. There is no overpopulation. That's all BS. God's got planets waiting out there 10 times the size of the earth that don't even have anybody on them yet. I mean, whatever you can imagine is real. It's turning out. Science is proving it. Astronomy is showing it. Is proving it. It's true that it's an unbelievable universe we live in, and we don't know the bounds of the universe, but there is one that does, believe it or not. That's where we're separate from God. You know, we so often in life believe that we separate ourselves from God when we sin and all this, but that's just an imagining. That's because we're cursed with the original sin, with the fall, with the knowledge of good and evil. But there's no way to really separate ourselves from God, like it's written in, I believe, book of Romans, chapter 8, in there, where it talks about how neither life nor death nor angels nor demons can separate us from the love of God. But our imagination cannot extend that far yet to understand if indeed there is no bounds to the universe, that it really is an infinite thing, okay, and that this is just the beginning, maybe, okay, that we're something huge, something cosmically unfathomable as of yet, but potentially we can, if we evolve, if we grow, and as God allows our imaginations to expand. But right now, I mean, we're only just exploring the bounds of our imagination and what we can accomplish, and in understanding, for instance, flying machines that are propelled by anti-gravitational forces. Or you could say gravity propulsion for engines, something like that. It's either anti-gravity or pro-gravity. It's kind of part and parcel. It's one and the same. It's sort of like forward and reverse in your car, perhaps. But it creates a shield around the vehicles. So people say, well, you know, how can they go through space at light speed or something? And how about all the mini meteorites and all? Because it's like a force field around it is what's created with this energy, with this power. And science is just exploring this. So you listen to a guy named Bob Lazar, he explains this in as cogently a manner as I've ever heard anybody explain. But it's fascinating stuff. And it just, you know, it gives you a hint of where we can go with this thing. I mean, if it's true that you could have a craft that's impervious to destruction, basically, that can travel to other galaxies, okay, that's a big deal. That gives you a hint of, you know, the possibility of finding out what's out in space. And on the other side, is it always light or is it always dark? Do we know? Really, we really don't know. Maybe this is building these galaxies is God's way to instill more light into the darkness. Whatever it is, it's huge. But we know that we're important. We know we're important from Scripture. We know the nature of God. We've asked these questions even without the Bible. Humanity has asked these questions for millennia. Is God a good God or a vengeful God? And you see, what we found out is God is a good God, a loving God. And He wants the best for us. And the reason is because it's logical. It adds to reason that this is the case because of our instincts to love our children, to love one another, to enjoy each other's company. We are all like little gods. That's it. And God is diverse. God is male and female. And yes, God is black and white and brown and red and yellow and whatever other colors you want out there. And God looks a lot of different ways. God is 7'10", and God is 3 foot tall. Okay, and that's God. And we are God, and we are equally loved, like it's written. He's numbered the hairs of our head. We are worth more than many sparrows. So this is obviously a God that cares very much about his possessions, his prized possessions, and that is us. And this idea of giving us free will, that God is an all-generous God. Why wouldn't God be a generous God when you own the universe and everything contained in therein, rightfully so? Why wouldn't you be a generous God? This is the kind of thing that we need to ask ourselves, okay? You know, last week, when I'm uploading these videos, I'm able to review them and listen to myself. And sometimes I make mistakes. And I know I made a math mistake, a big boner. And it was about percentages. And you can never reduce something more than 100%, obviously. But you could increase it infinitely, okay, in terms of percent. There's no limit upward. But there's a limit when it comes to going down. So I just wanted to make that clear. I was talking about 10,000% increase in the cost of housing. And that sounds hyperbolic, but it's in fact true. And gold hasn't even gone up that much. But it's absurd. It's reached absurdist levels in the housing in California. But I wanted to make that point. So anyhow, also, you know, I was talking about Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer. And what the point was when I was talking about correcting each other is this tap. It's a touch. It's like a loving touch, right? It does something to the brain. And this is what he's found with dogs. It's like people, their first response is that when they see their dog jump, you know, jerk around, is that Caesar hit their dog. But when they realize that, no, in fact, what he did, he just touched the animal and he snapped the brain, okay? That's the kind of thing we need to do with each other, okay? When we know somebody's not seeing the forest for the trees, we have an obligation, whether it's the crony capitalist that doesn't understand, they got to explain, you know, they need to listen to the communists who've been created because of crony capitalism. See, these people, that's all we need to cause all the trouble. The flies in the ointment, the maggots in the ointment are these people fighting with each other. But they're good conservatives and good liberals out there that want to live free, that believe in equality and justice, okay? And they're turning social justice into a bad thing too. I mean, how can this be happening? But it is social justice. I mean, who doesn't think social justice is a good thing? How do you turn that into a pejorative? Or equality? But I hear people, even Millie Weaver was interviewing a lady and these terms were coming up. And she didn't correct her and talk, well, can you further explain? You see, we're not further explained to these communists and the fascists and all this, okay? Explain it to them, okay? Make it clear that you believe in free market supply and demand and tell them what that brings in terms of progress. Define progress with them. How the wealth disparity decreases, not by taking wealth from others, but by allowing everybody to be prosperous. Okay, and how, in order to be absolutely, truly free, you can't be free, beholden to the money masters, and be under a lot of burden through taxation or cost of living. Same thing, 2 peas in a pod, cost of living taxes. If you got to pay it, you got to pay it. If you can't get away from it, you can't get away from it. Okay, it's just as pernicious either way, whether it's a government source taking it from your private entity. So let's be very clear with explaining these things to each other and say it's all about honesty. And we've got to get serious and understand the gravity of the situation. We're talking about Third World War and all this crap, people waiting for Armageddon, all this bull makes me sick to my stomach. Let's get real, man. We're in dire straits, and we need God. And we need everybody to rally their sensibilities and go out there and help one another and just love one another and explain to one another. Convince, don't condemn. bring them in to the fold, whatever. If you're a good liberal, then you try to bring the conservatives that you believe are good in, okay, and convince them that your theory, your philosophy, your belief system is right. And conversely, the good conservatives need to do that with the liberals. Try to convince them that they're wrong. But this whole idea that we're going to use violence and intimidation like Antifa, that's terrorism. Where is the FBI on that? This is bull. Where's the National Guard saying, no, you can't do that? If America loses the First Amendment, dude, we're nothing but a smushed fly on your windshield, okay? Because we've lost all control over the economic aspects of our lives. We're enslaved, utterly enslaved, and getting more so. Donald Trump can't just stop this. We're not going to get instant gratification from the things Donald Trump is doing. Believe